It's rare to see two champions fight each other in their respective primes, and it's even rarer to see the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter taking on the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter.
Volkanovski is the real deal. This kid's got a championship-level mindset.
But at UFC 284, we'll see both of these things. The lightweight title is on the line, and the pound-for-pound claim as Alexander Volkanovski moves up a weight class to challenge Islam Makhachev. So let's break down this epic fight and see who might end up as the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. Let's first take a look at how both fighters got here, starting with the 155-pound champ Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev, the recently crowned king of the lightweight division, Islam Makhachev boasts a stellar record of 23 wins and only 1 loss. He is currently riding one of the hottest winning streaks in all of MMA, having won 11 fights in a row, which includes 5 straight finishes. Those 11 wins make it the 3rd longest win streak in UFC lightweight division history. Now, en route to those wins, he has absorbed the least amount of significant strikes per minute in UFC history. So not only has Makhachev been winning, but he's been doing it without taking any damage himself. Now, the name of the game is to hit and not get hit, after all. Makhachev also hails from the now famous Dagestan region, and like his close friend and now head coach Khabib Nurmagomedov, Makhachev brought his exceptional wrestling and submission skills to the UFC and has dominated his competition for the most part. But more on that grappling ability in a little bit, so stick around. Along with becoming the best lightweight on the planet, Makhachev climbed up to the 2nd spot in the men's pound-for-pound rankings. And at UFC 284, not only will Makhachev be putting his title on the line, but he'll also be fighting for the honor of being named the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter on the planet.
The lightweight on the line, pound-for-pound number 1 on the line. Let's do it.
By trying to take that spot from Alexander Volkanovski. However, it will not be easy to do, as Volkanovski has earned that number 1 spot for a reason. So let's take a look at what makes Alexander the Great Volkanovski such a formidable opponent. Alexander Volkanovski. Now still undefeated in the UFC, Alexander Volkanovski has clearly established himself as one of the greats. His current win streak stretches all the way back to 2013 and includes 22 straight wins. In the UFC, he has won 10 fights in a row, which is the 2nd longest win streak in UFC featherweight division history. Volk claimed the 145-pound title back in 2019 by defeating Max Holloway, and since then he has defended the belt 4 times and risen to the top of the pound-for-pound rankings. His fluid striking style, incredible grappling defense, and high fight IQ have made it nearly impossible to beat him. Not to mention his heart and grit, which was on full display against Brian Ortega as he defended against a guillotine choke, which would have submitted 99.9% of all fighters. And most recently, Volkanovski put on the best performance of his career by thoroughly outclassing Max Holloway in their trilogy bout. Now, many considered Holloway the uncrowned king at 145 and was in the top 10 pound-for-pound ranking when the two met. But right away, Volk proved that he was leagues above even someone as credentialed and well-respected as Max Holloway. It's a performance like that which gives Volk fans hope that he will be able to move up a weight class and pull off the upset against someone who has looked nearly invincible in Islam Makhachev. So let's break down the fight further and see which fighter holds the edge in which category, so stay tuned to find out. Striking. It might be slightly unfair to call this a striker versus grappler match, as Makhachev has shown great striking fundamentals and even dropped Charles Oliveira in their last fight, while Volkanovski has used grappling to beat Holloway and wasn't afraid to test Brian Ortega's jiu-jitsu skills by taking the fight to the ground. However, the likeliest strategy for each fighter will lean this fight toward the striker versus grappler realm. And of course, the more seasoned striker in this case would be Alexander the Great. 60% of Volk's offensive game is striking reliant, as he dishes out 6.79 strikes per minute, which is more than double the UFC average, while absorbing only 3.53. He does so with a nearly 60% accuracy rate, and even his defense is at 60%. However, in the defense category, Makhachev has Volkanovski beat, as his defense is at 66%, and he only absorbs 0.95 strikes per minute. As mentioned before, Makhachev has the record for the least amount of significant strikes absorbed per minute in UFC history. Of course, a large part of that has to do with Makhachev's grappling prowess. More on that soon, so stay locked in. But in terms of striking numbers, Makhachev has proven accurate when he strikes, but he does so sparingly. The majority of Makhachev's striking leads to a grappling opportunity, while Volkanovski is much more sophisticated with his striking arsenal. Often his combinations build upon the previous patterns, which leaves his opponents confused and bloody. Just take a look at the Korean zombie fight. So with striking, the clear edge lies with Volkanovski. However, the threat of a takedown can freeze many great strikers. Grappling. As a former world champion in Sambo, it is not a big secret what Makhachev's game plan is going into every fight. Simply put, he wants to drag you to the ground and land some damaging ground and pound before securing a submission. And so far, Makhachev has been able to do that to the vast majority of his opponents. 85% of his offensive game relies on grappling and submission, and he has an impressive 65% accuracy rate with his takedowns. Typically, he secures 3.42 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is well above the UFC average of 1.53. And once he takes you down, you will be hard-pressed to get back to your feet, as Makhachev possesses some of the best top pressure in the game. But like we said earlier, Volkanovski isn't a white belt on the ground. He has a 73% takedown defense rate and successfully defended 3 tight submission attempts from someone as good as Brian Ortega. Now, of course, the takedown rate might be slightly misleading, as Volkanovski hasn't fought a true wrestler since Chad Mendes back in 2018. Mendes was able to take Volk down 3 out of 4 times. However, the pound-for-pound king has had plenty of time to improve his defensive wrestling since then. But make no mistake about it, that takedown defense will be tested by Islam Makhachev. Makhachev also has 1.3 submission attempts per 15 minutes. So generally, if you give Makhachev enough time on the ground, he will submit you. So we'll give the grappling edge to Makhachev. But there are also other factors outside of striking and grappling that can determine who will win and who will lose. So stick around and find out the X factor for each fighter. X factor. For the defending champion, Islam Makhachev, his X factor has to be his natural size and strength advantage. Although Volkanovski famously weighed over 200 pounds, Makhachev has proved to possess a great strength advantage over many of his 155-pound opponents. Now, this could play a big factor in the grappling department, which is always Makhachev's go-to game plan. As for the 145-pound champ, Volkanovski's X factor will be his footwork. One of the best ways to avoid getting taken down is being mobile enough that you don't get cornered near the cage, or you are not a stationary target for a single leg or double leg entry. Now, Volk possesses some of the best footwork in the game, so if he's able to keep Makhachev guessing and stay off the cage, he'll make it tough for Makhachev to take him down. Prediction? Now, once the title fight was announced, Islam Makhachev opened up as a sizable favorite at a minus 310, while Alexander Volkanovski sits at a plus 255. But these odds might catch some fans off guard, as Volkanovski is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. But it just goes to show you how much Makhachev is respected. Now, if Makhachev can get his striking going enough to set up his grappling early on and use his size to tie up Volk against the cage before securing his takedowns, well, we could see him controlling the 145-pound champ on his way to a decision victory. While for Volkanovski, it is difficult to see him winning a decision against someone like Makhachev, so he needs to keep this fighting standing and use his footwork and combinations to set up Makhachev for a KO win in the middle rounds. But if we had to pick someone, we're gonna lean towards Islam Makhachev retaining his title due to his dominant wrestling ability. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell beside it so that you're notified the next time we upload a new video. And with that being said, you just watched us break down a potential huge matchup next year between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. We'll see you next time.